Hey, how's it going guys? My name is Ray, and today I'm going to show you a not so simple recipe because today I'm making a birthday cake for a friend, and since we both like Jack Daniels mixed with stuff, I've decided to take my Jack Daniels chocolate tart recipe and make it into a cake recipe. Mind you though, this recipe is still a concept at this point, so I can only tell you at the end of this video if the cake is actually nice, but the measurement I'm gonna give you later is gonna be the final one, which I think is gonna be the first cake I made anyway, because I do that a lot. First try, luck, done. Because hey, who needs perfecting recipe, right? We're home cooks. Anyways, without further ado, let's cook.
First, we're gonna start with the cake part of this recipe. And to do that, we're gonna have to melt 225 grams of chocolate with 50 grams of butter. I'm just using microwave here. You can do it for 2 minutes. Take it out every 30 seconds and give it a stir. And back for another 30 seconds until you get something like this. Then add in 2 tablespoons of sugar, two egg yolks, and we're gonna have to whip the egg whites later just to make the cake lighter so it wouldn't end up like brownie. So we're aiming at the texture of between brownie and sponge cake, so it's almost like mud cake. Just mix in the egg yolks. Then add in 2 tablespoons of plain flour and give it a good mix. And now we're just gonna have to whip the egg whites until you reach stiff peak. Something like that. Next, just incorporate it little by little into the chocolate mixture. You can be rough at first when you're mixing it in, but as it gets lighter and lighter, try to just use a folding motion like this so you don't lose too much air. You just gotta prepare a baking tray or any kind of mold that you can use. I'm using a loaf pan here, and we're just gonna have to line it with baking paper so the cake doesn't stick. And then you can transfer the cake batter into the pan. Just try to wipe off any smudge like that so it doesn't burn in the oven. Finally, you can pop it in a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius for about 30 minutes. And guess what? Because this is a layer cake, you're gonna have to redo the procedure that I just showed you and make a second batch of the same cake while waiting for the first one to bake. And of course, you can do everything in one batch, but I would recommend you to do it in 2 batches because it's just easier to manage. I mean, it will cook quicker and it will be easier for you to test whether it's already cooked or not. Which, by the way, is very easy, because you just have to take a knife or skewer, insert it into the cake and see if it's already set or still liquid. Anyhow, doing it in 2 batches also means that you get to test drive your oven first. Never trust the timing that I give you when it's related to oven, because different oven will have different timing unless you have the exact same oven as mine. So 2 cakes later, all you need to do now is just to let the cake chill down on the bench first before taking it out like so, and let it cool down even further on a wire rack. And be very careful with the cake because it's quite fragile. As you can see, I cracked the first one into 2. So now we're gonna have to forget about the cake for a while and moving on to the ganache, which is another super simple recipe by the way. All you have to do is just to chop up 650 grams of chocolates and mix it with 500 ml of hot cream. You can heat up the cream in a pan over medium heat and take it up to that point just before it started to simmer. Then you can just pour it straight away onto the chocolates and just let it sit for about 1 to 2 minutes. Make sure everything is submerged in the cream and just give it a good mix like so. And next, you can add in the Jack Daniels and just give it a good stir. Now with the Jack Daniels, I like it a bit on the heavy side, so I ended up putting in about 150 ml. I would recommend start with 60 ml and add 30 ml at a time while stirring and tasting it, just until you're happy with the strength. However, you gotta keep an eye on the chocolate to liquid ratio. In my case, it's already 1:1, so if you wanna add more than 150 ml of Jack, I would recommend you to add a little bit more chocolate as well. And after that, you just gotta ladle in some of the ganache into the same pan as the one that you use for the cake, and just leave it in the freezer for about 20 minutes. And now you're just gonna have to trim the crusty end of the cake. But just be careful not to trim it too much. You want the cake to be smaller than the mold, but you don't want it too small because you gotta keep the cake to ganache ratio. That I reckon would be good. Now we just have to slice the cake into two, so you get 2 even pieces of cakes out of each. And right here is pretty much the setup that you will need. You can keep this as a chef treat. Trust me when I say it's already really good on its own. So all you need to do now is just to transfer one of the cake slices onto the ganache. Try to place it right in the middle. Give it a few gentle press. And just cover it with another layer of ganache. And just put it back in the freezer for another 15 to 20 minutes or until the ganache is set. And just keep layering until you run out of ganache or space first. In my case, I ended up only using 3 pieces of the cakes because the mold is not tall enough. Plus I already ran out of ganache anyway. So after you set your last layer, you can tilt it upside down like so. Try to get the cake out without damaging it. It might help putting a baking paper before you put in all the ganache, but I just kind of forgot about that part. So there you go, a little bit damaged on the sides, but we can fix that. All you need is a piece of spatula and the cake will look as good as new. There we go. All you need to do next is just to heat up some chocolate until it's melted using a microwave. 30 seconds blast like earlier, and just pour it on top of the cake. Smear it out using a spatula to the sides. Try to make it drip down naturally to the sides because I'm aiming for that kind of design. There you go. And back to the fridge for about 5 minutes. Here I'm just decorating it with some white chocolate just for contrast. I don't think I need to repeat myself again how to melt the chocolate. But yeah, you can go wild with the design. You can do anything with the chocolate. I'm not really good at designing cakes myself, so here I'm just showing you what I'm doing, but feel free to do anything you like with your cake. At this point you can actually already serve it, but I just want to go a bit crazier because it's for a birthday cake. So here are some store-bought chocolates just for decoratives. I just try to stick it onto the cake with some white chocolate. My idea here is to be able to stick a shot glass onto the cake, just for aesthetics and just to remind people that this is a Jack Daniel's chocolate cake. So I'm just gonna leave that last bit blank for now and continue on decorating the sides. And again for aesthetics, I'm gonna trim the excess chocolates. And here I'm just sticking the shot glass onto the cake with some white chocolate. And there we go, we're pretty much done. And don't worry, I'm gonna put a blooper at the end of this video just to show you guys what it looks like inside once you cut it. So now before giving the cake to the birthday boy, I'm just gonna pour some of the Jack Daniel's into the shot glass. Just like a symbolic thing, like when you blow a birthday candle. And yeah, there you have it guys, my Jack Daniel's chocolate cake.
So the cake turned out pretty good. Not everyone tried it because it's quite strong, but those who tried it thinks it's pretty alright, so I reckon it's a success. And if you like this recipe and you enjoyed watching the video, please leave this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Instagram and Twitter to get the latest update on my videos. And don't forget to check out my previous videos, I'm gonna put it over here. I'm gonna put the links and measurements in the description box below, and you can leave a comment below, let me know what you wanna see me cook next week. Until next time guys, bye! And if you want to have a look inside the cake, don't forget to check the bloopers. See ya!
So there it is guys, the inside of the cake. Thanks for sticking around, hope you guys like it. See ya!